Live NFL trivia every Wednesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge for a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. John Madden is an iconic personality in the history of the NFL. And when you think of the legendary Hall of Famer that is John Madden, a bunch of things come to mind. From his unparalleled success as a head coach, to the way he changed the game of broadcasting, to his incredible advertisements and his legacy with the Madden video game series. But for many people, the first thing that comes to mind is his iconic voice. You can just picture him as the voice of football for a generation of fans. He always knew what to say and when to say it, and he had a charm about him that made this work. Which is why it's hard to imagine a time where John Madden was truly speechless and had no idea what to say. In 1971, when he was the head coach of the Oakland Raiders, when he met with his team at halftime of a game against the Houston Oilers, he genuinely had no halftime talk planned. He had no clue what to say or how to say it, and even after the game, said that whatever he came up with in the locker room was complete nonsense. Imagining John Madden at a loss for words is almost impossible, but half a century ago, that's exactly what happened. And this is the story behind that moment. Before I talk about the moment in question, we need some context to understand how the season for the Raiders was going, how their opponent's season was going, and how the game was going to the point where Madden had no idea what to say and what to tell his team. The Oakland Raiders entered the 1971 season as one of the most feared teams in all of football, and rightfully so. This was a team that won the AFC West the year before, made it all the way to the conference championship after losing just 2 of their final 11 regular season games, and had made the postseason by winning their division in each of the past 4 years. Plus, John Madden had proven himself at this point as one of the best coaches in all of football. So when you combine all of that together, you get a team that enters 1971 as one of the favorites. Sure enough, through the first 8 weeks of the season, they were living up to that billing. 8 games into the 14-game season, and you'd be hard-pressed to find too many teams playing better football than John Madden's Raiders. Through 8 weeks, the Raiders were 5-1-2, and led the AFC West over the Kansas City Chiefs by half a game, although ties did not count toward the standings back in 1971. They had an offense that was firing on all cylinders. Oakland had scored 207 points by this point, which led the AFC and was third in the entire NFL, only behind the Dallas Cowboys at 220 and the Detroit Lions at 211. After losing a shocker on opening day against the New England Patriots, they had gone unbeaten in their last 7, and this was despite a brutal stretch where, thanks to sharing a stadium with the Oakland A's, they had to play their first 4 games away from home. Oakland had a point differential of plus 73, which was the 3rd best in the AFC and the 4th best in all of football. They allowed just 134 points, with a defense that was 4th best in the AFC and was inside the top third of the league. And perhaps the most impressive part about Oakland was just how consistent they were during this 7-game stretch, as they scored at least 20 points in all those games while having a defense that forced at least 3 turnovers in 6 of their first 8 games. Any way you want to slice it, the Raiders were one of the best teams in football, and Madden's coaching was a big reason why. And up next for the Raiders in their quest to make the postseason for the 5th straight year and win their first Super Bowl in franchise history was a home game against the Houston Oilers. Everything you could say about the Raiders, you could not say about the Oilers during the 1971 season. Whereas the Raiders were really good, the Oilers were really bad. Whereas the Raiders were playing for something, the Oilers were playing for nothing. You get the picture. Houston was a really bad team in every sense of the word. The Oilers were 1-6-1 through their first 8 games, being just one of 3 teams in football through 8 weeks, alongside the Buffalo Bills and Cincinnati Bengals, to only have 1 win. Their offense was absolutely putrid, having scored just 95 points, which comes out to an average of less than 12 points per game, and was the 3rd worst in football, only behind the Philadelphia Eagles at 81 and the Buffalo Bills at 94. Their defense might have been even worse. They allowed 174 points, which was inside the bottom 10 across the entire NFL. The Oilers boasted an abysmal point differential of minus 79, which was the 4th worst in the NFL. Whereas the Raiders had scored at least 20 points in all but 1 game, the most points Houston scored all season at that point was 20. That was their only game where they had at least 17 points. Houston had no idea how to take care of the football, as they turned it over 32 times in those 8 games, which comes out to an average of once a quarter, and they coughed it up multiple times in every game, with 3 or more turnovers in all but 1 game. To put it mildly, the Oilers were one of the worst teams in football. You might even be able to make the argument that through the eye test, they were the worst team in football. This game between the Raiders and Oilers was absolutely monumental for Oakland, but everyone knew it was a mismatch of epic proportions. No one expected the Raiders to actually lose this one, and lose their lead on the AFC West at the hands of the lowly Oilers. Still, Madden was not going to let his team look ahead and take this one lightly. Madden praised the Oilers in the week leading up to the game, saying that Houston's passing attack was worrying and that players like tight end Alvin Reed and wide receiver Charlie Joyner were going to be threats and were going to be tough to stop. And with that, we head to the Oakland Coliseum for this Week 9 matchup. Let's just say that on this November day, the Raiders did not disappoint. November 14th, 1971. The Raiders are taking on the Oilers in what feels like a must-win for Oakland, considering the fact that a loss could potentially knock them out of the postseason if the season were to end at this point. On paper, the Raiders were the more talented team by a country mile, so as long as they did what they were supposed to do, they were going to win this one and probably win it in convincing fashion. However, I'm pretty sure no one, not even Madden himself, expected the Raiders to win it in the manner that they did, because the first half of this game can only be described as a bloodbath. It started out early in the first quarter with a 63-yard touchdown pass by Darryl LaMonica to Drew Bowie, who caught his first career touchdown pass. The play put the Raiders up 7-0. Then a Pete Bandazak touchdown run from 1 yard out made it 14-0. And that was followed up by a 25-yard pass by LaMonica to Bowie. Fun fact, Drew Bowie caught just 2 touchdown passes in his entire NFL career. Both of them came in the first quarter of this game. By the end of the first quarter, the Raiders had a commanding 21-0 lead. Keep in mind that they were going up against an Oilers team that had not scored 21 points in any game that season. The Raiders had also never blown a lead larger than 14 points in the history of their franchise. So to make a long story short, after just 15 minutes to play, this one was already over. But in the second quarter, the game became even more over than it already was. Pete Bandazak scored his second touchdown of the day, once again scoring from 1 yard out. This made it a 28-0 ballgame. Followed that up with a 59-yard pick six by Jimmy Warren after he intercepted a Houston pass, and the Raiders were now 35-0. This was the final touchdown that Warren ever scored in his career, and I guess getting it off of a pick six in a game like this is not a bad way to do it. Tack on a George Blanda field goal at the end of the half from 10 yards out, and at halftime, the fat lady was singing so loudly that you could hear it all the way in New York. The Raiders were up 38-0, leading it by 6 possessions. And for the first and only time in his career, John Madden was completely speechless. What John Madden was dealing with at halftime of this game is a very good problem to have. It is a problem that I'm sure most coaches dream about. What do you tell your team at the half when they're up by 38 points? Back in 1971, because there was no 2-point conversion, this was a 6-possession game. There was not a chance in the world that the Oilers were going to come back from this one and claw and scratch their way back in it. It just wasn't going to happen. Not only were the Raiders up by a ton, but the manner in which they were doing it was absolutely historic. To put this performance into some more perspective, the 38-point margin at the half was the largest halftime margin in Raiders history. Not only was that the record at the time, but in the over 60-year history of the Raiders, to this day, their 38-0 lead remains the largest halftime lead in franchise history. It was the largest halftime margin by any team in the league that season, and was just the 6th time since the end of World War II that a team led by 38 points at the half. Not only were the Raiders taking care of business like they were supposed to, but they were playing some of the best football in franchise history. It was a near flawless performance. And at halftime, Madden had the task of keeping his guys motivated and not letting them take their foot off the gas pedal. So how did Madden do this? How did he talk to his team after that historically good first half? Well, he had nothing to say. He was completely speechless. He was struggling to find the words to say, and only at the end did he manage to think of something. His words were generic and talked about how the Raiders needed to play the rest of the way like it was a brand new game and like the score was 0-0. But even Madden admitted that he was struggling to come up with anything to say. He had no idea how to resonate with his team. After the game, Madden said on his halftime speech, "We talked about playing the rest of the way like it was 0-0, but even my 5-year-old wouldn't believe that." For the first time, and possibly the only time ever, Madden had nothing. Not that he needed it on this day. The Raiders put in some backups during the second half, and even though the Oilers scored 21 points in the fourth quarter, it meant absolutely nothing, as the Raiders were up 41-0 after 3. Houston never looked threatening or competitive at any point, and if Oakland wanted to, they easily could have put up a 50-burger. The fact that Madden had no halftime talk planned, and the fact that he didn't believe in his message, and the fact that understandably, no one on the team believed in what he was saying, meant absolutely nothing. This game was pure domination, and nothing that Madden said or didn't say was going to change that. And again, throughout the legendary career of John Madden, this might be the only time that he truly was at a loss for words. There is a reason that Madden is one of the most successful coaches of all time, and one of the greatest personalities of all time. And that's because he knew exactly what to say, when to say it, and how to say it. The 1971 season was one of just 2 times that Madden failed to make the playoffs, as his Raiders won the AFC West or AFL West in 7 of his 10 seasons, and made it to the AFC Championship or AFL Championship in 7 of his 10 seasons as well. And then when he transitioned into the booth, there was a reason he was so good. There was a reason he resonated with so many people and worked top broadcasts no matter what network he was on. To learn more about his broadcasting career in the 1980s, click the card in the upper right corner. And that's what makes this story from 1971 all the more remarkable. John Madden had a way with words, and this was the only time that he didn't. When you leave a legend like John Madden speechless, that's when you know you did something crazy. John Madden won 103 games in his career and an unbelievable winning percentage of 75%. And of those wins, this one has to be the easiest by a country mile. As everyone would find out, it was so easy that Madden was left genuinely speechless and was at a loss for words. In the nearly half-century-long football career of the Hall of Famer, whether it was as a player or a coach or in the broadcasting booth, this has to be the first and only time that this has ever happened. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes, link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaguarGator9, and subscribe to 60-Second NFL History on YouTube. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.